Hey, everybody. Just a warning about today's episode. We talk pretty candidly about sex, so it is recommended for mature audiences only. Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Rachel.
Hey, y'all.
And Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Konnichiwa.
Oh. Yes. Thank you. That's a callback to last week. And Alex, you now have all of your future greetings planned out.
I will look them all up, listen very carefully to how they say them, and here we are.
Now, if you can't tell, there was no wardrobe change or anything, but we're coming to you on, let's see, this is Black Friday. You are having a turkey hangover right now. You've had all the trimmings and everything. You're recovering from
Done being thankful. You are now a consumer.
Yes. And because we didn't want to record one of these over the holiday, we decided to do it in this part of it in advance. But today we are bringing you the second conversation we had with the Dufours. This time it's about talking to your kids about sex. Alex and Jess got to sit down with them. But I thought before we got into that, maybe we could talk about our own awkward experiences, either as kids or with our own kids and different things like that. You know, like maybe you were in a movie with your parents and then there was nudity in the movie that you weren't prepared for. Or
are you sharing a story right now?
Yeah, is this it?
Titanic?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a version in Titanic that had a scene like that. I thought it was...
Oh, yeah. So your parents bought like the non...
Yeah, I guess I just watched
skipped the art scene?
Yeah.
Oh, it was edited out. They used a magnet on that part of the VHS.
No, I think someone like literally released like a version, of one of those tapes. I don't remember if it was on tape 1 or tape 2 because that was like a super long movie.
Yeah, 2-tape.
Where they had a 2-taper.
Yes.
So
There for a while, there was this Christian company that would actually, they had a special VCR or something like that, and when you'd put the tapes in, it would look at the closed captioning or something, or maybe it was a DVD player, and it would like mute out all the bad words and stuff
That's
automatically.
intense.
But yeah,
High tech.
yeah, very high tech. Got to protect the kids. Does anyone want to start with a story that they feel is appropriate to share?
I will. So I read Rachel's book probably about a year ago, and just from reading it, thinking about sex and talking to my kids about sex, I don't know why, but I decided to ask our oldest, who's 6, if he knew where babies came from, but I didn't. I mean, I just asked it kind of in a nonchalant way. And if anybody's seen Boss Baby on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
I found out that he thinks that babies come from Baby Corp. So I'm good.
They're shipped and
That's
packaged.
awesome.
Yep. He thinks Baby Corp.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
that's
he's
funny.
going to have a rude awakening.
Well,
someday.
One of these days.
Well, I don't have kids of my own, but I do work in kids ministry. So, I mean, there's still opportunities for kids to, bring up some uncomfortable conversations. So actually last Sunday, I was reading it was like a storybook Bible, like going through just like the stories, and it was Samson. And I was sitting with this little boy and little girl, and I turned the page and Samson's like standing there, but he doesn't have a shirt on. And this little girl's like, ew, why is he not wearing a shirt? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess that's just what his outfit was, for that day or whatever. And she's like, that is disgusting. And the little boy was like, yeah, but it's appropriate for him to not wear a shirt. And she's like, yeah, it's inappropriate for girls to not wear a shirt or to wear shirts or whatever. And she's like, because they have inappropriate things that they should not be showing. And I was like trying to like move the conversation. I was like, oh, look what he's breaking the walls down. Like, oh, wow. Like trying to change the conversation. And they're like,
flip the page.
And then the guy's like, the little boy was like, yeah, because her breasts are inappropriate and she should not show those. And I was like, wow, all right, let's just. I mean, these are like, I don't know, 4-year-olds that I'm talking to. And it was just so funny because I was just like, well, they're going to bring these topics up. So it's good to kind of be prepared, I guess.
It just reminds me of my favorite scene in Kindergarten Cop. Anybody watch that movie?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina, just completely out of context, you know? And he's like, what are you talking about? But
I think that's where I learned those words, honestly.
Is it?
I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Was from kindergarten. Because I was probably, I don't know when it came out, but.
It was also kind of funny to me because these two little kids are just having this conversation, like not even like feeling awkward or uncomfortable at all. And I'm like the one that's feeling uncomfortable. Like, let's stop talking about this. Like,
that's one interesting thing that like raising kids, I feel I've picked up on is that as adults, we color their world so much with our own experiences, and it tends to be kind of an unhealthy situation because as adults, you get really protective and you're scared of if they hear something, but a lot of times they don't even know the context of it, you know, especially when it comes to sex, because they just don't have a real good grasp on it. Yeah.
I'm just like, what's appropriate to share or not? That's what I'm thinking of. I'll just share that we learned at some age that you need to lock your door, and I think they explained that in this. And so
as parents,
you know, your kids, you might think they're napping and just not lock the door.
Is this from personal experience?
So I am not going to confirm or deny that, but I will say we learned you need to lock your door. So, so
a good reminder. Public service announcement, Alex. Thank you.
Public service announcement. Lock your door, moms and dads.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the most. I mean, sex wasn't really talked about at all growing up. And with my parents, I do remember a time when in the 90s, you know, the AIDS thing was really a big deal, and the school was going to have like I don't know what they call it, or what was it? Not a rally, but I don't know, whatever, some sort of a assembly. That's the word I was looking for, assembly. And they were going to be talking about AIDS and AIDS prevention and all this stuff. And I was probably 4th grade, but the teacher sent home a note that said, if you want your child to be excluded from this, they could stay home that day if, you know, whatever you arrange it. I didn't want to know anything about AIDS or sex or any of that. I just latched onto the part about I could stay at home. And so I was trying to set it up because I was figured like my dad was out of town. My mom's not going to really say anything to me. So I can just be like, oh, I don't want to be there for this. This is uncomfortable. You know, I'm trying to sell it as a 4th grader. And it turned into this big thing where my mom's like on the phone with my dad. Like, do I need to talk to him about like birds and the bees and all this stuff? And so I just remember driving to school that day. My mom is taking me to school, and she's just pretty much like, well, a boy has a penis.
Oh, no.
And like, just like going into this whole thing of like how it works. I was so scarred. I had no idea. Like, I was so naive at that age. And so I just ended up at this AIDS rally thinking like, I will never have sex ever. This is a terrible thing. Not only is it weird, but it can kill you. You know, it's just one of those things where, I think as parents, we tend to make it way worse than it probably needs to be. So anyways, here we go. The Dufours part 2, or should I say part 2? Sorry, bad French joke.
Bad French joke.
Goodness.
All right, that's up next.
I love them. This was such a fun interview for us to do. So,
by the way, Ray, if you didn't listen last week, our friend Jess she's quarantined right now.
Oh yeah.
So if someone just popped onto this one and they didn't know, Jess is usually a part of our cast, quarantined, not sick, doing well.
Yes.
And when you listen to this, you know, everything's gonna be better. She'll be out of quarantine, enjoying life. Send her a gift card.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
So we are back with the other Eric and Rachel, not one we're familiar with sitting with. But that is hilarious.
That is.
The French one.
Yeah, the French Eric and Rachel. So we're excited for this conversation. Jess and I are excited after hearing what you talked about with our friends, Eric and Rachel. It's just exciting. And as a parent, you know, for us, we're going to focus a little bit more around maybe some more of the sex questions, maybe things we didn't get answered that both of us had anticipating inside of there, but also parents. Both Jess and I are parents.
I feel like we're in a hard time in life, kind of. Where it's like, okay, even from what we talked about last week, like we're thinking about like, or I'm not we're thinking about, like sexuality, like thinking in a marriage. And then it's like there's another layer of parenting. And I'm
Yes.
thinking about, I'm influencing in a lot of ways like someone else's sexuality.
That's true.
So
No pressure.
lots of sweating.
Yeah, no pressure. Like, I wish we had to listen to that conversation before having kids. Maybe I would have
Yeah.
considered less. I don't know.
How many do you have?
I have 4.
Cool.
Yep, four kids, and that's one of the things I'll get into as well. Jess has all boys.
Yes, all
Woohoo.
boys like
Yes.
the Dufours. Yes.
Yes, and there was a moment for me. I mean, I had my son; he was our first, and then there was just this different moment in having my daughter, my first daughter. Then I had 2 more subsequently after that. But there was this moment, like I had my son, and I'm like, all right, I have a son. There's one penis I have to worry about. Yep. Okay. I had a daughter, and all of a sudden there's infinite
Yes.
penises I have to
You have
worry
to
about.
worry
I feel like because I just have
That's
to
true.
worry about his and where that goes, and and so for my daughter, it was like I have way more pressure all of a sudden on me, and so it scares me in some ways. And so we'll probably talk about that a little bit in this conversation. Jess, do you have a question? I just came out with that, so I don't even know what question I have to come out of that.
I think one thing is just like when you have kids. So mine are 6.5, 4, 2 next week. Like, where do you start?
Yeah.
Like, where do you start?
That's a great question. I'm so glad we are talking about how to talk about sex to our kids, because it's key for their future adult life. So first, understanding how sexual development happens in someone's body is extremely important. God created us sexual beings, and you know what? It starts when the baby is in the womb. I don't know if you've seen ultrasound where you see a little boy touching his penis, for real. You have erection in the womb. The first lubrication starts in the 24th first hours of a little girl's life. So
Wow.
sexual beings is being built since the beginning, and we have to address it. So different stages, there are 8. I won't do all of them, but just one, maybe the first one or 2. When you take a baby, a newborn in your arms, and you look at the baby in the eyes, you're giving him this feeling like you are safe. You can connect with me. There can be a form of intimacy with me, and it is safe. It is the first stage of building the capacity to connect with a spouse in the future. So we are starting by looking at this very cute baby face. We are starting building a positive feeling of intimacy at the sexual level when they will be adult, but it starts there. And then when you say vagina and penis to a little kid, like I heard you say in your podcast, you're giving them the positive representation of what is sexual intimacy for the future life. So different stages, answering their questions is going to start building. So yes, let's address the question.
And just talking about it, because you brought up using like penis and vagina, is using words like that, especially when they're younger, I mean, does that take away like the shame of
Yes.
not saying it, not
Yes.
talking about it, and opens up some communication?
Yes, because if the parent is embarrassed to use those words, they are very smart, our kids. They are going to pick up the fact that, oh, there's something mommy's or dad doesn't want to speak about, so there must be shame, and they are building the shame feeling around it even when we said nothing.
So I'd say for the parents, please try to train yourself in front of a mirror saying those words like penis, vagina, penis, vagina. I'm going to be able to
Just get
because your
comfortable.
kid
Yes.
won't feel the embarrassment and feel like, oh, it's totally natural. Mom just answered my question. And another key is never give more answers than the question asked for. Like, don't overload your kid. If they have a very simple question, answer simply. Don't give more information, because that's a temptation you have sometimes. Because sometimes you might, without noticing it, you might give an information that is too heavy for your child
They're not ready.
at that time. They're not ready for it. So just answer the question, nothing more. And when the time comes, they'll ask others.
That's good. To get into just some practicals of that, and I think most of the time I can think of when those questions have come up, it's like showering, bathing with kids, and when do kids like when are kids allowed to see you naked? Is there like an age or not when you're like, okay, they can see it right now? Obviously, like a baby comes out of the womb, and if they're breastfeeding, then they're seeing mom's chest. And so, is there an age or types of things that you should and shouldn't let your kids see, and at what point do you say no? We need to, talk about this and not do
So
it.
there's two questions in one. There's as adults, is it okay if we show ourselves nude in front of our children? And then, for how many years can you allow your kid to be naked in front of everyone else?
Okay.
I'd say for our sons, I answered the second question. I'll let you answer the first one. I don't remember precisely, but maybe around 10 plus, or less than that, a bit less than that. They used to run naked and they couldn't care less about it. 5, 6, they were totally okay. And suddenly, they stopped being like this. Suddenly, they had to close the door.
At 5.
At 5, 6, okay. So that's when you notice, okay, they're becoming aware of their
Nakedness.
nakedness, and then so they're not that comfortable anymore. They're not considering themselves as babies anymore. So you have to respect that, and then ask them, okay, how do you feel comfortable? Do you want me to come and help you with whatever it is that you need help in the bathroom, or is it okay for you to do it by yourself, etc.? But it's gonna show. When they reach a certain age, they'll change their behavior around that.
It's important to respect that, because we are teaching them by respecting this to make sure that nobody is touching them in an inappropriate way. So how sometimes we force a kid to say hello or to hug someone. Please don't do that, because we are teaching them to learn to say no. This is my boundary. This is my body, and I do not want to be seen naked. And so that's a good tip to help our kids being protected. So watch out for the time where they react to them being naked, and then start enforcing the need to be to have privacy and to protect their own body.
And the parents' nakedness in front of them.
And then it's a choice. That's a very individual choice. It depends on what you want the culture. Like if you go to Finland, we are going to talk international here, but if you go to Finland, it's normal for this culture to take a sauna, all the women together, all the men together. So it's just part of their life.
And families together.
Families together, but at around teenager, then women will go with women and boys will go with men. So they also have this sense of now it's time to separate the groups. So it depends on the family culture, with their history and where they're coming from. So I would say decide inside of your own family what culture you want to create. But regardless of you deciding that you're okay with your kids seeing your nakedness, at one point there will need to be a difference, like, okay, this is not for everyone, and we need to respect privacy, even inside of a family where they're okay with nakedness.
Yeah.
Good. That's good. Getting into that kind of question and getting more into sorry, I had a question on here.
Were you thinking about sex?
I was. Yes, I was like,
he's blushing, just so you know.
Sorry.
yes.
The hesitation came from that.
I cannot wait for this podcast to get over.
I could answer the question if you want to. Okay.
I've been texting
Sorry.
my wife this whole time.
Uh-oh. Good job, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, so while you're collecting yourself,
We'll have a baby
cool
announcement
down.
soon.
Can we get him a fan? Somebody. Just
So
like
good.
as we're talking about parenting and about viewing sexuality, what's a good way, like kind of stepping back for a second, of what should our mindset be? Like maybe we grew up a certain way that there was a lot of shame, or we didn't talk about sex, and we know like this is the generation where we break a cycle.
Yes.
Maybe. So you've already given some good ways of how to interact with our kids, but what should us as parents, what's a good mindset for us to have?
So before you start, honey, I'd say first, this is your responsibility. God entrusted you with souls, and your kids are living souls. So I heard that way too often. Well, I won't talk about sex to them because it feels uncomfortable. God will deal with that. No, you're responsible of your children, and so you do not want the devil to be responsible for their sexual education. You don't want to do that. So they need to be prepared to confront the world. You can't shelter them. Don't even try. Don't even think it's doable, because one day or another it's going to explode, and then they're going to be overloaded with sexual information, and it will come from friends at school or TV or cell phones. Cell phones are so dangerous with that. So please, you're responsible as parents. God entrusted you with them, so please talk to them about sex. Like we said, when they are very young, you can first start to say this is a penis, this is a vagina, etc., etc. And then as they grow, walk with them, walk along them with those questions. Be the one giving them informations. Be safe to them. Be safe that they know that if one day they see something they shouldn't have seen, well, they can come to you. They won't be punished. They won't be blamed. They won't be, you won't do something terrible to them. They can trust you. They can come to you. You're safe, and you have good answers for that, about those questions.
And the mindset is celebration. Sexual intimacy is a gift from God, and we should be the place where they can talk about it the best. Let's celebrate it. If we bring this approach, it's a wonderful gift. Your sexual body, sexual being is a wonderful gift from God. Let's embrace that. Let's understand how your body functions, so they don't get trapped by it, but they kind of understand what's going on when there is a surge of testosterone or hormones are starting to mess up the way they feel in their head. If they can put words on it, it's a life-changing experience, because then they understand what's going on and they can work with it, embrace it. So celebration, embrace your body the way God created it. That's our message from the beginning with a kid, and you will see they will become very balanced adults at the sexual level.
So practically, I'm thinking back to even my family story, and like, my son never saw another baby in my wife's belly because he was the first one. And then you have your kids getting older and they're like, Dad, where did, this baby come from? And he obviously saw, my wife pregnant, and it was once in the belly, and then he met his sister, not the whole process in between. And so what age do you start to have those, as a kid starting to ask that question, where did Quinn come from? I know she was in mommy's belly. Do you just say a doctor took her out? Even when you're using that language, the vernacular vagina, hey, here's how it all happened. Is there an appropriate level or age?
Yeah. You have to adjust your answer to how old your son or daughter are. But you can say, Dad just love mommy so much that, now that there's a little baby coming. And that might be sufficient if they're really young.
And as long as it's sufficient, you give this answer. They will come back and ask the question again. Start the same answer, and if it's enough, then he will go and play. If he says, yeah, but how? Then he means you need more.
Yeah, that's good.
So bring another step. Well, there is a seed in dad's body, and there is an egg in mom's body, and those two meet and they become a baby. And if it's enough, he will go and play. And then he will come back, and for another time it will be enough until he said, where is the seed? and then you talk about
sounds like you've been asked these questions before.
Okay, how does it look like? And you start drawing, and then and when it's time to explain how does the baby come out, go for it. Explain it.
But that's why you have to ready yourself before. And
little touches.
Our 5 sons came to me and said, Dad, explain. Because they could see their penis acting weirdly, And so they were like, what's going on in my body? Could you help me understand? And so you need to be ready when those times come around to give explanations. And they need that. Or they're afraid. They don't understand what's going on in their body, especially when they become preteens and the hormones start to mess them up in their mind and stuff. Yeah.
Would you say it's a gender-to-gender conversation, or
it starts like that? Yes.
Or would it? Yeah. You say, hey, I want to wait till mommy gets home to have this conversation with my daughter, or do you just have that at should I be talking to my son more about
I would say
the male anatomy?
If and when possible, gender to gender is a good idea. If there is a single mom, no worries. She can handle that too and find godly men in her life to help with that. But yes, start with dad and sons and mom and daughters, and then switch, because the boys will need to have a female perspective and the girls will need to have a male perspective. So it's a
and
team
there's
effort.
very good tools around, like the Dr. Dobson's products, like Preparing to Adolescence and stuff like that. That you can. Those are audio
series,
files and stuff.
Yeah.
It can really help you start the conversations, and then after you forget about that, you just talk with your son or daughter about those topics. But I'd say yes, son to dad and daughters and mom. Yeah, cool.
And we're kind of in I don't know if it's easier time in life, but we're young parents raising young kids, and so we're already thinking about this now as they're little, and it's something that's important to us. But what about somebody that's listening today that has teenagers and this has been kind of a taboo topic, or they're not talking about it, but how do you start those conversations? How do you change, or how do you pivot?
Yeah, I'd say it's never too late to do the right thing. And so you can always come to, I'm going to speak about sons because I have no experience around daughters.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry about that.
Our
It's
daughters,
okay.
they come up already and adult.
Prepared. Yeah,
There you go.
But it's never too late to say, hey, son, I'm sorry. I should have done that earlier. But I would like to say, okay, do something with your son or your daughter that they really like. Like if they like hiking, go hike with them. Do something, go on their turf. Do something with them that they like, and then use the occasion, maybe not the first time. Create a relationship, a healthy relationship that they're going to be comfortable with, and they really see you're interested in them. So maybe don't bring the topic the first time you're doing that, but maybe after 2 or 3 times, and then you say, hey, I haven't been the dad I should have been, because I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't told by my dad, so I'm sorry. You can say, I'm so sorry. Forgive me for not doing that earlier. Here, I want you to know that I'm available if you have questions. And maybe the teenager won't be comfortable the first times, for sure. But if you keep maintaining this relationship with discussing about other topics, but once in a while saying, hey, do you have anything, or would you like to talk to me about this kind of topics, then the door will open up at one time.
Good. And I guess as you do have kids that get older, what process, like if that hasn't started and you catch your kid, maybe masturbating or looking at pornography, or you've got, your kid's got a device and all of a sudden you are looking at the history and something pops up, how would you say to start having like those types of conversations? If you're like, okay, I didn't do well, I already know this is a problem at some level, they've discovered it. How do you start to broach those questions in that same kind of thing? Or do you just hit it nail on at that point and not like kind of slowly introduce the conversation?
Never with condemnation.
Okay.
Always with open arms and, welcoming. If you want them to be able to come and talk with you about it, don't condemn. Start by saying, hey, I saw this. Can we talk about it? For too long, we have approached sexual conversation with our kids in the Christian setting only to say don't. And don't do this, and say this is forbidden and this is forbidden and this is bad, but we never explain what's good. So I think if we reverse the conversation and start putting the light on the positive side of what is sexuality, and we explain it in another way, that will help our kids to look at the right places. So if we catch one of our children having issues with that, let's open the conversation by being welcoming, forgiving, and saying, okay, let's address it and see what's good in sexuality so we can help them make the good choices. We need to be able to equip our children to make their own choices by knowing what's good and what's bad, not only what's bad, if it makes sense. Yeah.
That's good. I've got another daughter perspective question.
Yes.
So I think even for us now, bathing suits are becoming a thing, right? And where, like, with our son, it's like, okay, it's just pretty easy to pick out a bathing suit for him. So in us trying to like instill values to, our daughters that they are sexual beings, but also to have self-respect and help teach things like you talked a little bit about Puritanism in the last episode, but where does that rub shoulders with modesty, and how do we have like those conversations, especially when they're like, well, this girl, has this swimsuit, and they don't really even understand. They just want what's comfortable. They're like, why do I have to wear a top? Brother gets to wear just a bottom. Like, how do you start to have those conversations as you introduce even self-worth, value, dignity into like the clothing conversations?
That's good.
That's a good question. It's a privilege to be a woman. And it starts very young. So if we help them see all the beauty of being the female body and being a woman, and we build that, it's a privilege. It's beautiful. It's a gift. Let's make modesty being beautiful, and teach them like this is because of beauty, and it makes you even more beautiful to enhance your body by wearing the top of the bathing suits. And if we start putting that idea of beauty linked to modesty, it's going to build a positive image of the body, of the female body, into a daughter's mind and brain. It's a privilege, and let's make it even more beautiful. We have again, we have to often say modesty has to hide. No, let's enhance instead of hiding. Let's make it even more beautiful instead of making sure nobody sees it. It's a different way to approach it in a positive way. And maybe it will make a big difference. They love the princess theme and all of this most of the time. So let's make the girl side, the beautiful girly side of her even more beautiful instead of saying, you need to hide because a boy may look at you. That's a very negative way to look at it, but making it even more beautiful can change.
Mm-hmm. And I remember from reading your book, which is amazing. I would recommend everyone read it.
Thank you.
You said in there at one point that talking about sex in your family was so comfortable that they could ask anything,
yes.
and even around the dinner table, like it was just how do you take steps towards doing something like that where it's not like, oh, this is inappropriate or...
Yeah, that was quite funny. Our boys' friends would hope and pray that when they came for dinner, it was a sex talk night, so we could talk about female orgasm and stuff like that around a good meal.
They would try to bring the conversation on those topics.
Yeah, they would try to go
so
there.
So they could come to you with their questions.
Yes,
and
and
I'd say it starts between husband and wife. It's a decision to make. You need to be proactive about it and decide, okay, we're going to make it such a comfortable topic that they'll never have to go to see their friends to ask those questions, but they'll be comfortable with dad and mom. So it's you need to be proactive and decide, okay, we're going to make that something normal. And then, like we already said, train yourself in front of a mirror to say those words, because your sons and daughters, they know you perfectly. I mean, beyond your words. And if you're not comfortable, they're going to notice it right away. So they'll shy away from those conversations because they know that was not that comfortable. But if you prepare yourself and then casually start a conversation around these things, and there's many reasons. I mean, there's many things in the news, talking about an actress or an actor, something happening to them. You can always use something from the news to bring the conversation on those topics, and then start to make it something natural. And so they'll get used to that, and you'll see, maybe not the first times or maybe the first time, but they will ask questions themselves, and they'll ask you because they do have questions.
And another big key is to not only be dad and mom in front of them, be husband and wife in front of them in a very appropriate way, of course. But like our boys, our sons, they were not allowed to come in our bedroom without knocking. And if they just had something to say, they would run and we would say, hey, go back. Wait, knock, and wait for the answer. Because in this room, we are husband and wife, and very fun and wonderful things happen that you don't need to see. So we started this language since they were very young, and sometimes they would, and they would have to go outside and knock again. But it was printing in their mind, ooh, there is very important stuff happening between husband and wife, and it's fun. And one day maybe it will be mine too. And that, from the beginning, we're like, hey, there is a place where we're husband and wife, so we are French, so we would kiss in front of them and touch.
French kiss?
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Of course.
What difference? How come you need to name it French?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's so cool.
It's an American thing.
But yes, not one more time. Oh yeah, we can tell you why.
Okay.
One more time in an appropriate way, but still they need to see the difference between dad and mom and husband and wife. Please don't call each other dad and mom. Please don't do that, because it's confusing for the kids. They don't say, hey, dad, do you want to do this?
Gotcha.
Call you honey, mon chéri, or something like this. Make sure they see the difference. There is dad and mom, that's wonderful, but they are also lovers. And if from very little age they can see that, it will bring this positive representation of what it is to be married.
And I'm thinking, as you're saying all these things of celebrating and communicating and being on the same page, all I'm thinking is you're creating a shame-free environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they can come to you and you're going to celebrate them and you're going to talk with them and they're going to feel safe and secure.
So we can equip them to make their own decisions when teenager years come. But at least they have a positive representation of the sexual world and their body and what a married relationship at the sexual level is.
And I'd say it's not a risk-free environment, meaning they can still make their own mistakes
Yeah.
because they're human beings, so they will make mistakes.
Like
but
we did.
but they know that they can come back to you and it's safe. You won't condemn them and you won't say how you're stupid you are or what you've done was stupid, etc., etc. Even if they know, sometimes they still make mistakes because that's who we are, humankind. So, but they know it's safe to come back to you and say, hey, Dad and Mom, I've really messed up. I've done this or that happened to me. And you're still there to help them out because we're not perfect people either.
Yeah. So as you're talking even about like the conversations around your dinner table, obviously your house, treats it in one way, but every other household treats it differently.
Yes.
So I worked in student ministry for a long time and with middle schoolers. And so, right around the age of puberty, all of that kind of stuff, parents are giving their kids phones, all of those things. And you've got some parents where like literally some teenagers, they've been seeing, pornography. I think one statistic I read was like 8 was the average time that it's seven
It's
was
7.
introduced into the eyes of and a heart of a kid. And you can't just get rid of that brain. I mean, that image. And then you've got some parents that are like, you don't talk about sex in front of my 6th grader because you're going to introduce them to like a concept or a word or something that's going to like set their hearts and emotions and hormones ablaze. So I guess part of my question is, you guys are comfortable talking about it, right? And maybe your kid's friends wanted to come and talk about orgasms or those kind of things because they're like, we can talk about it here, but as a parent that's like, I don't know that I want my kid talking about orgasms to some other family.
Yep.
At appropriate age.
Yes.
And at, relationally, depending on the relationship I have with, that family. So how would you say to introduce that? How did you coach your kids? And like, hey, we wish this was more normative. We're very open about this. We're doing this really well, but if you use the word penis at school, someone might look at you, or maybe you might even get corrected by a teacher or somebody that doesn't think that's appropriate. So how do you teach the differences to love, respect other people that aren't quite there, but also do it well in your home?
Yeah, you're right. It comes with the training of needing to cover your body or your nakedness. It's the same. We explain to our kids we can talk about it, but not everybody. And let's make sure that if there is, we role played a lot. If there is a conversation somewhere else, so when they were younger, 6, under 10, I would say, we practice what they would do if someone else was having a conversation or doing something they were uncomfortable with, like watching a screen with porn on it. We practice at home them leaving the room and saying, hey, I prefer to go and play outside or not be part of this conversation. So we role play when they were little, working their way out of something they didn't want to have. And we role play also and explain like, okay, we have those conversations, but it's private, like your naked body. You guys can play, the 5 sons can play naked in the shower all together when they were very little, of course. But you cannot do that with everybody. And when you have friends over, cover your body. So that was alongside of those teaching that we explain. At home, we talk about that, but not with everybody. When the friends came, they were older. But, we do a lot of conferences, many conferences with teenagers that are in middle school and high school. We always ask parents' permission, of course, because it's true. For some kids, if they have never been exposed and very protected, that's not the right way to hear about sex in a public setting with a church group. They need to hear about that with their parents. So ask permission, but then start talking and presenting it in a positive way. And I'm always extremely surprised to see how middle schoolers and high schoolers welcome a sex conversation in a healthy way. Let's talk about how God created it and what is beautiful about it and how to approach it, because they always say, wow, I understand God's plan for that, and I'm ready to wait because I know why I wait, not because someone said it's forbidden to do, but because we explain why is it good to wait. So it's a huge difference. So yes, checking with the parents for sure, but not being shying away from bringing the conversation though.
Yeah. So when my son comes to me and says, Dad, this girl is really, really cute. Weird things are happening in my body. We're going to date each other.
Oof.
What are the lines? Like, where do I draw lines for physical contact?
Yeah,
Can we
great.
French kiss? Which I do want to hear a little bit later.
want the explanation.
as what French kissing is, where that came from. But how do we teach our kids what sexual expressions, or how do you express emotions and feelings?
When our boys were reaching teenager years, that's exactly the question we had, and we talked about it, and we prayed about it, and we came up with an explanation that we are using now in our teaching because it is so helpful. So there is a way.
That's one of my favorite things that you talk about.
Okay, so let's do it. I'll do it quickly. It's in my book, so you can find the whole explanation there. But there is a way to explain friendship with different stages. So according to the way your brain thinks, you can use a target. So from the outside to the inside, or a ladder. You climb the ladder. And the friendship can be defined with 6 easy steps. The first one is intellectual, and then social, and then recreational fun. So those 3 steps, intellectual conversations about what's the next movie of Avengers coming out, DC or whatever.
That's good.
For the kids. Yeah, there you go.
Good job, honey.
And then social, being with friends in a group, and then fun, all the fun activities that kids can do. Those 3 levels of friendship happen outside of the body. So we told our boys, go out with friends, interact with girls at this level. This is perfect. This is a great place to build friendships in a safe way. Then the 3 next steps go inside of the body. The first, so number 4 is emotional, then spiritual, then physical /sexual. When you connect with someone in an exclusive way at the emotional level, meaning I open my heart to someone and I'm sharing how I feel to someone and only this person, and I really want to talk only to her or to him, I'm opening my soul to this person, and it's creating bridges between those 2 souls. And then if we talk about God or if we pray together, our spirits are connecting, and then our bodies will want to connect. So we explain that. There is a drawing that you can find in my book, and we explain that to our kids, saying to our boys, build friendships as many as you want, have fun as much as you want at the 3 first levels. If a girl, especially in America, you guys, these American girls, they wanted to open their hearts to our sons a little bit too much. Yep, French boy, very cute. And they would tell them, hey, maybe you need to talk with your girlfriends about that, but I'm not the one to talk about this conversation with you, because it's too much for our friendship. And that's a great way to explain how to build friendship in a safe way.
Yeah, that's really good, because I know for me, like when you're talking about the inside part, I was really good and had really strict boundaries physically, and I was like, okay, I can kind of get the boundaries I shouldn't cross with a female before I'm married, but I was really bad emotionally, and I think especially as a Christian guy, and I loved connecting with people. I was a guy that people would come to and share their problems and share emotional things.
You were caring.
With me. Yeah, I was caring, and that was just part of how God wired me and built me. And so oftentimes it wouldn't be saying, hey, maybe you should talk to somebody else about this, because I wanted, it's a little bit of a savior complex.
Yes.
You want to fix someone and you want to be a part of it. So even drawing those, the spiritual and emotional, I think, especially Christian guys, we can be really bad at the emotional part. And we're like, well, it's okay because I didn't do the physical part with a girl. But
you connected emotionally.
Yeah, and that sometimes is more damaging even than the physical part.
And the danger is when there is exclusivity building up between, like you said, and we are at risk as Christians, because someone opens up your heart, their heart to you, and you're like, well, we should pray together, which means you're connecting at the emotional level, opening your heart, and then spiritual level, because you're going to pray together. If you do that in a group of 3 or 4 people, it's safe. But if you do that with only one person, and this person always comes back to you whenever she or he has a problem, even if it's the same gender, like, I don't know if you still say that today, but the BFF, best friend forever, that's super dangerous, because if you become exclusive with someone or become jealous if the other person talks in the same way to someone else, you're like, but that's my friend, this person should be talking to me and only me, then you're in an exclusive relationship, and it's dangerous, because this will go further if you don't pay attention to it or stop it.
So that's the first piece of the explanation. And the second piece, is helping our kids to understand why God set up a safety zone, which is the covenants between husband and wife to practice sexual intimacy and have sexual relationship. And this is not a moral law, meaning do it or don't do it. like the 10 Commandments, you shall not kill, for example. It's a moral law, and the church has way too often explained the sexual purity under a moral setting, which this is not how God created it. He created it as a natural law, like gravity. Gravity is a natural law. It applies to us even if we don't believe in God and even if we don't believe in gravity. So keeping the sexual intimacy inside of the covenants follow a natural law. And we explain to our son that in the heart of every woman on earth, there is a red line, that a notion of something that she doesn't want to go further than this point at the physical level before she feels safe in the safety of the covenants. And we explain to our son that they need to find out this red line when they start feeling more interest in a girl, so they can respect this. Because if you cross this red line, if you go too far, too fast at the physical level, there will be 3 consequences, and I will do it quick. But the first one is that the building of the friendship will stop where they were at when the red line was crossed. The trust will be difficult from the wife to the husband, and she will have no sexual desire for him. So waiting is to protect the relationship after. And when you tell a 14 years old or 16 years old boy for us, or kid, that wait, respect the red line inside the girl's heart, because it will bring a stronger relationship as husband and wife. If you want to build your life with her, they hear it. And they want this strong relationship, and they want this strong friendship as husband and wife and as partner in life. And they wait at the physical level. So this red line is a very big key to help our teenagers and our kids to understand why God wants for them to wait for a good reason, so they can enjoy sexual pleasure
and
after.
Just to bring more clarity, red line is not just it's not being sexual. It could be something way before that, like just I don't want you to fondle my breast even through shirts and clothing just before we are married. I prefer not. It could be something very very simple, in fact. And most of the time, the young lady, she recognizes that the red line existed when it's been crossed. Yes. She was like, oh, I didn't want that. But that's already too late. She just realized she had one when it's been crossed. So it's very important for the teenager ladies to think about, where is my red line? Indeed, anything that involves genital parts is beyond the red line, that's for sure. But it's going to after that, it's going to depend on every single person
and their story.
And their story. Where is your red line? Think about it. Pray. Ask God to show you where your red line is. And whenever you're sure that this young guy is the one that you'd like to be married with, then when you feel like your relationship is going further, like emotionally connecting now and spiritually connecting, then let him know that my red line is, for instance, this. And guys, you are the knight in the shiny armor. You need to protect this red line. Even if one day, like, let's create an example, like 2 weeks before getting married, your future wife says, hey, let's cross the red line. We're going to get married in 2 weeks. I mean, no one cares anymore. No. Tell her, no, honey, you asked me to protect the red line. Let's do it till we have this covenant between the two of us. At that point, guys, she's going to know that even when she wants something that is dangerous for herself, you're going to be able to protect her even from herself, because you love her so much. And then she's going to trust you forever. So that's what you want in a marriage. Yeah.
That's good. And I think, I mean, as you guys are pastors and counselor, and that's what Jess and I get to do as well, just the thought in my mind is, how do we model that to our kids as married people? Because I think even those lines and those 3 different things, it can even happen out, like in my marriage relationship, that I could be having, emotional conversations, and people bring that to both of us, in just our line of work. So how do we begin to protect that emotional tie, even the spiritual tie? There's people that maybe they see me preach on a Sunday, and, God was working through them, and they think that it had more to do with me than it actually does. And they're like, I just need to talk to you about this struggle, and I need you to pray with me, and it's a female. How do I protect myself in that type of situation? Or Jess, that somebody's a client and that's her profession. Are those still the same rules that you would apply then?
Oh, yes. They still apply. 2 things. Make sure you are connected to your spouse at all those levels. Do you still have fun together? Do you still have intellectual, political conversation? Do you still have a social life outside of your work or ministry? Do you still feel connected emotionally, spiritually, and sexually to your spouse? Make sure that those bonds are strong, and then be careful of exclusivity with someone else.
Yeah, and I know when you are a professional counselor, sometimes you have to counsel people of the different gender. But like Rachel and I, very often we remain with our own gender. We don't cross because you never know. I mean, people don't see you as you are. They project something on you, and then they don't know when you have a cold and a running nose and your socks are not at the place where your wife would like them to be. They project something that is not the real you, and they're gonna fall in love with someone that is not you, and so it's always dangerous. So have boundaries, healthy boundaries, and you can feel when someone is going a bit too far emotionally connecting with you, and so be aware of it. And the Holy Spirit usually tells us.
Yeah.
So it's our responsibility to be aware of that, and just have boundaries around yourself when you work.
It's good.
Sorry, we're pelting you with questions, but I just
Go for it.
like we just keep all of us tag teaming off each other, because that just makes me think about, connecting with our spouse, and, raising kids is a lot of work. It's tiring. And then, a lot of us are working. Right now we're doing school. What are some good, simple ways to, I would say, maintain your sex life and just staying connected in general, like in the child rearing years?
Well, we already spoke
Please
earlier
help.
about that, but have a date together once a week. That's a very important thing to do, and don't let a Sunday night arrive without having a date during the week. I mean, you need that 2 hour.
That's a very big rule that we followed. Don't let Sunday night arrive without having had a date this week with your spouse. 2 hours. Only 2 hours.
It brings, we don't want to be too technical, but it brings back a hormone that is called the PEA, that is the falling in love hormone. When guys, when guys can't put two words together correctly, and so that's the hormone of falling in love. It tends to disappear or decrease between 6 months and 2 years after the start of the relationship. And you see in the world many like stars in Hollywood changing constantly partners because they want this feeling of in love again. And so yes, once you're married, if you don't pay attention, this hormone's going to decrease and be replaced by the oxytocin, that is the being together. But you still need the falling in love together the butterflies to be there. It's not like, I love you, and if it changes, I'll let you know. If that's where your relationship is, it's not good. Yeah. You want I'm in love with you. I want to reconquer your heart every week. So the date will bring that back.
So when our sons were under 7 years old, since we had 5 in 6 years and a half, we had a hard time finding babysitters.
I wonder why.
I don't know why. They were very
They were
cute,
angels. Yeah.
But so we put them in bed early. And they are still complaining about that nowadays. But we did, so we can have the evening, and we would make sure they were asleep, and we would just walk in front of our condo, looking at the window, making sure it's not on fire. But we would physically step outside to breathe, and have this time to talk and hug and connect. And then you need to take advantage if you have younger kids or you're in this stage of life. Take advantage of every minute. So if they are asleep or playing in your room, take time to, you have different ways to make love. You have the quickies, so it's fast and in between doors. Or you have the homemade sexual time, where you will make sure that maybe, share with other parents. One night I take your kids so we can be by ourselves, and one night you take our kids. So, make sure you team tag like this with other parents that are dealing with the same things. And once in a while, go book a weekend, a hotel, and make sure grandparents or friends take care of your kids so you can get away. So plan those during the year. Yep. Yeah. Do that.
Why are you red again? Look at him. A fan.
He's thinking he's making plans.
Another request for a fan, please.
I was trying to think the homemade. I was like, I heard of quickie before, and then you said homemade
and restaurant quality gastro.
Okay, so that's why I was like,
you have homemade.
Where are we going with this? So I was just like, am I gonna Google this right now? What's gonna happen? So,
all right,
go, Jess.
Okay. I have a question about your adult children.
Yes.
You can answer to whatever degree you want, but having raised children and kind of how you have chosen to, which I really respect, how do you see your adult children viewing sex and security and all the things we're talking about now? Because you've kind of like I don't want to say like raised products or you know what I mean, but
Okay, so I want to talk for them because they're adults, so they would hate that. But
They would
Sorry,
say,
Nathan.
Mom.
they would say, "Mom, every
Mom,
story."
how could you?
Yeah, every story we share, we have permission to share those stories. But so I have not asked
Just
permission
general,
to
okay.
talk about. But in general, they can talk about sex as well and as easy as we can. I can say that. That's not sharing anything about their own life, but they are very comfortable. And yes, I think of our youngest one. He's still in college. He's finishing this year. So I guess he's a senior in college. Yeah. And he's giving advices, and he's single, not in a relationship, but giving advices about female sexuality and all of this because they can talk about it and they are well-rounded in their head about how they view sexuality and how God views it and how fun it is. Yes. And they are making, our daughters now, they are making jokes at the sexual level like their parents would be ashamed of, but they do it because they are married to our sons.
Yeah. Well, I even saw, maybe I need to ask her later, but your daughter-in-law like sat through and listened to this. I can't imagine, like I don't have that relationship with my mother-in-law where I could imagine me sitting in a room listening
we
to
can
her talk about
We are the
sex.
bizarre French.
We are the Dufours.
in-laws.
I love it.
And so I think that's a testimony, though, to like how you've created that culture inside of your sons and your family, and it's safe.
Yes.
And it's not like I don't love my mother-in-law, but we just haven't
course.
had those conversations, so you haven't built it to be a safe place. So
And one more time, a key is we talk about sexuality. We don't talk about our own. So our kids now, all adult and 3 of them married, they talk about sexuality in general, but no one says, hey, this is what we like and what my wife likes. Or never. That's way too far, and we've never, ever done that. You can listen to thousands or of hours of us talking about sex. No one knows what we like, and that's where we draw the boundary, and they know that. So it makes it safe to talk about sex without talking about your own life.
that's good.
Great.
Jess, you have anything else?
I have one more.
All right, go for it.
Do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, mine was kind of the closing question anyways.
All right, close
wow,
it
worked
down.
out perfect. I was just thinking in general, is there anything that we didn't cover that you're thinking, hey, this would be a good thing that Jess or Alex didn't bring up that about sex, about raising kids, about parenting?
Yeah.
that
I
we
would
didn't cover?
I would say that we talked about it in a very positive way. Sometimes abuses happen, and we discover that a kid has been abused and how to recover from that. I would say do not get stuck into condemnation and feeling hopeless. There is hope, even if your children or one of your kids has had to go through a very traumatic experience. There is a life with after this, and as a family and as an individual, they can be healing and recovery, and it's never too late. That's a very big message. When we talk about parenting or our children and sexuality, because sadly we live in this world and we see too many damages being done to kids way too young. So the message is hope and recovery and healing, full recovery and complete healing for the kid becoming adult and for the relationship. So if you are listening to us and you're thinking, well, that's beautiful, but it's way too late for my family because of this or this, I want to bring hope in the picture. Even if something terrible happened, there is hope on the other side.
I love that. And can you share your resources too before we're done?
Where
Of
we
your-
can
where can we get your book?
Okay, so you will be able to find the website. Our website is ericracheldufour.com. ERICRACHELDUFOUR.com, and you will be able to find all the resources. We have a series on raising kids, by the way, so parenting and all of this. You will find resources
Very good. And
there.
we can get a link to your book.
The book is there too. Yes.
And when my wife sees that I Googled "hooray for the vajayjay" later,
You're in
in
trouble.
my history, she'll know it was because I was looking for this
Yes.
book.
Yes.
So that's good.
Thank you.
That's so good. Thank you seriously for taking time
Yes,
to
thank
be
you so
here
much.
and be on the podcast. I've got to probably go back and listen. I always say that, but like to process this, so many good things, even to me, like as it ministered to me as a parent that's trying to figure this stuff out with my wife, and so such good information. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
All right, thanks to Alex and Jess for sitting
Yes.
down with Rachel and Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And also, Rachel and Eric, that joke's never going to get old. How do you feel that went? Alex or Jess, feel free. Either one of you jump in. Did it go the way you thought it would?
Yeah, I mean, it was helpful for me. Obviously, I mean, I asked some pretty direct questions because I have 3 daughters and they only had sons. And they talked about that part of the experience of not having a full, they had advice for that, but not full like life experience for some of those differences. I know for me, I am a giddy guy. And so there were some moments, obviously, if you watched, you probably saw my face turn pretty flush and all those things, just listening. And there was a few moments where like things got lost in disconnect. And I'm like, wait, is that what you said? I was kind of confused. And then I don't know about you, but when I see somebody start to laugh or I think they're thinking something, I have no self-control. The Lord is working on me.
No, you don't.
So it is fun. And I think especially around this topic because there's so many jokes and things like that.
Yeah.
Like it was just a humorous thing as a kid, for me because we didn't talk about it. And it was kind of something I think when parents or when you don't have the maturity or want to take something super seriously, humor just is like that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll just avoid it with humor. And so like with a lot of sex kind of stuff growing up, like that was it for me. Or innuendos and things like that. Like you just grow up in a culture where you're like, okay, there's an innuendo. And so.
Yeah. Way more than there was before.
Yeah.
It's bad.
For sure. I loved that we got to do this because I don't feel like there's a lot of opportunities in life like we had this week and last week, just to sit down with somebody that this is their job, this is something that they're passionate about, and just to ask whatever we wanted. And so a lot of my questions were, okay, let me learn as much as I can and ask as random as I can to get information. Because I mean, Alex and I separately have younger kids. And it's just raising them in this world is scary. And it's like, what do you say? What do you do? Obviously, we're navigating a different world than our parents did with us. And we have to ask those questions because we're dealing with those issues at such a young age with our kids. So I'm so excited, so pumped that we got to do this. And I'm so thankful for the Dufours for having this conversation with us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different resources out there, but the thing about this is knowing that it's coming from a Christian perspective, which when you're just Googling how to talk to my kids about sex or other issues around that, you find so many other resources that don't always align with our faith, which makes it even more difficult to know how to navigate these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm grateful for their honesty. I'm grateful for them coming in to talk about it. And I know I was able to grow and learn and even implement some of those things now already when parenting, when there is, and it's not just about sex. I mean, some of the things they talked about was like, okay, when's it appropriate? I mean, just for your kids to see you naked or not, like all of the just really practical tips on like those types of things. Or I think one helpful thing was like that whole, if your kid that I learned and kind of was convicted of was like, if your kid doesn't want to hug someone, whether it's grandpa or grandma or whatever, don't make them. And we've always kind of been like, no, you need to hug, if my kids just have a bad attitude or they're just being shy, I've always kind of been like, no, buddy, come on, it's grandma or it's your cousin or it's your uncle, like hug them.
Yeah.
And so even for me over the last few weeks since hearing them, that's been a huge help because I think it is one of those things that you kind of force, but then you don't really think of how that's reinforcing something for later on in someone's ability, especially my daughters, to say no. If they're not comfortable with something, I need to teach them to say no to that.
Yeah,
so
that's really good. Really good. Well, again, big thank you to the Dufours for doing that and coming out here to visit us. And also, I don't want to forget to plug her book. If you want to read that and learn more about what they have to offer, it's Rachel Dufour. Hooray for the Vajayjay is the name of the book. I'm sure you can find that on Amazon or wherever books are sold. A Borders, maybe. Are
Yeah.
those around?
If you're looking.
Barnes
I don't
and
know
Noble.
what section. Probably Christian
Yeah.
section, maybe.
Christian literature. Well, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and that does it for us today. If you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at podcast@cccomaha.org, or you can reach out to us on social media at CCC Omaha. We'd love to hear from you there. Any questions, concerns, if you have ideas for topics or headlines, anything like that, send it in. Until then, we'll talk to you later.